Good afternoon and welcome to BioAlberta's Alberta at BioDigital Showcase and Networking Reception. My name is Rob Stoddard and I'm the President and CEO of BioAlberta. BioAlberta is a member-driven, not-for-profit industry association for Alberta's diverse life sciences sector. Our membership includes researchers, students, entrepreneurs, and companies from biotech, pharma, health technology, bioindustry, natural health products, proteins, and ingredients. Our mission is to be a voice and champion for the life sciences and to grow a network of researchers, job creators, suppliers, and policymakers that allow people to seek partners and supports to help them grow and diversify Alberta's economy. For those of you checking Alberta out for the first time, Alberta has a number of strategic advantages available to our sector. A young and diverse population of approximately 4.5 million people allow for not only strong, discrete data sets, but a pool of young, skilled talent. A 40-year record of strategic investment into research and clinical trials infrastructure that has led to centers of excellence at the U of A, University of Calgary, and University of Lethbridge. A single consolidated health system operator, Alberta Health Services, which provides opportunities for province-wide clinical and patient data, as well as alignment of social data. A supportive ecosystem anchored by Alberta Innovates, Innovate Calgary, Innovate Edmonton, and for larger sector attraction, the newly created Invest Alberta. And a business-friendly economic structure, which I'm sure the Minister will talk about in just a couple of minutes. For more information on Alberta and what we have to offer, please go to our website, www.bioalberta.com, and navigate through the agencies and service providers listed. If you're attending BioDigital, then welcome from wherever you are. Please check us out in the Canada Pavilion at the Global Marketplace. If 2021 was a normal year, we'd be at Bio in Boston right now. You'd have been to the Maritime reception earlier in the day and now at Alberta's Showcase event. I can't wait for next year to be back at Bio physically, but I'm very excited about the program we've put together today for you to learn about and engage with some of Alberta's innovation leaders. Today, you'll hear about the University of Alberta's Kai Shing Applied Virology Institute and the research portfolio headed by Dr. Lorne Tyrrell and Dr. Michael Houghton. You'll also be live pitched by 7 emerging Alberta companies that are a small part of the innovation that Alberta has to offer. Throughout the afternoon, you'll have some time to network with other attendees, and I encourage you to move around from table to table to discover more about Alberta. But let's get started with the presentation from Alberta's Minister of Jobs, Economy and Innovation, the Honourable Doug Schweitzer. When Minister Schweitzer was appointed last August, he immediately brought an energy and openness to Alberta's economic recovery and the diversification of Alberta's economy based on our traditional strengths: energy, innovation, technology and life sciences, and agriculture and value-added processing. Minister Schweitzer has been a very open and vocal advocate. His efforts to define Alberta's role in biomanufacturing and domestication of supply, soon to be followed by sector strategies for pharma and other key sectors, are initiatives that we're excited about and plan to provide industry's perspective as to how to achieve government's objectives. Minister's passion about restoring Alberta's promise, an Alberta in which no matter where you come from, if you worked hard, you can succeed. With that, I'd like to welcome Doug to take control of the screen and share with you his ideas on why Alberta is a place for the life sciences sector to live, work, and play. Thanks, Doug. It's all yours.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rob, for the intro, and a big thank you to BioAlberta, Edmonton Global, Calgary Economic Development, all of the sponsors for making this a reality here today. And it's very timely. This is the time to talk about life sciences and the opportunities ahead, because in the last year and a half, every single person in the world has been paying attention to the scientific innovation that's happening in vaccine development, the leaps and bounds that we've seen from mRNA vaccines. We've got DNA-based vaccines, we've got protein-based vaccines, all of this research and development that's happened in such an accelerated way, the speed that's happened. And I'm going to give you some context, because when I took on this role last August, there was a lot of uncertainty. Were the vaccines going to work? Were they going to be, were we going to be able to ramp up production? What does this mean for Canada? What does this mean for our economy, our education, our children? All the different question marks that we had. So I want to kind of take people a little bit through a journey of the last year that I've been in this role, and the different strategies that we're rolling out for the province of Alberta, because we truly believe that we're very well positioned. We have the building blocks here in Alberta to play a leading role within Canada as we build out our life sciences, vaccine capacity, pharmaceutical capacity here in our country. So lots of things to talk through. But I really just kind of want to start with, that beginning perspective in August of last year. So when we took a look at developing out the economic recovery plan for Alberta, we wanted to build on the traditional strengths of our province, but at the same time, we wanted to diversify for growth. And for those of you that are familiar with Alberta, diversification has been a topic of the day probably since I was a kid. It's been an ongoing conversation of how does Alberta position itself for long-term success. We have a very large energy industry. We have a history in agriculture. We have a robust forestry sector as well. We have a traditional commodities-based economy in many different ways. And how do we find further opportunities for growth? So that's why when we put together our strategy, we wanted to make sure that we got the big picture right. And when it comes to the big picture, that comes down to a few different things: taxes, efficient government, and making sure we strengthen our workforce. So that's kind of the three key themes that go into it. And on the taxes front, Alberta is making sure that we position ourselves as a tax competitive jurisdiction. So we've accelerated the reduction of our corporate tax rate. We call this our job creation tax cut, bring our corporate taxes from 12% down to 8%. That's already happened in Alberta. Many other jurisdictions are going the other way. We got the United States heading a completely opposite direction. So Alberta is well positioned as one of the low tax jurisdictions in North America. There might be one or two states in the US that could keep up with us. We want to keep that tax advantage. We have no payroll tax. We have no consumption tax. So Alberta is very well positioned long-term to attract businesses here. Competitiveness on the tax front is key. Now, to be able to keep our taxes down, we also have to make sure we have an efficient government. So we've been, for the longest time, Alberta had it really good economically. And we were an outlier when it came to spending. And now as we look for a sustainable path forward, we can no longer be that outlier when it comes to spending per person. So this first term alone, we're going to be getting our spending down to the big province average in Canada. That's a big undertaking. And one example is that I was Justice Minister before I took on this role, is that we can find so much innovation in government. Government can be slow to adopt technology and just change with the times. We used to use the fax machine as the most efficient way to file documents when I started, just a little over 2 years ago. Fax machines were the most effective way of filing documents remotely. We didn't even have really digital filing available. So we eliminated the fax machine. That's just one example, but that's happening across government. We have to make sure we find ways to better provide services in a more cost-effective way, leveraging technology. And I'm going to talk about that technology and health and data here in a little bit as well. And it relates to a lot of the strategies that we want to develop long-term to attract innovation and investment into Alberta. Next part of our efficient government strategy is around red tape reduction. So we have a goal of reducing red tape on businesses by 1/3 by the end of this term. We're halfway through our mandate. We're halfway towards that goal. We've eliminated literally over 100,000 forms, regulations, processes. We've streamlined, consolidated processes to make sure it's an efficient experience for people that want to do business in Alberta. The first year alone, we saved businesses close to $500 million. I can't wait to see what the second year report has to show, but I've been told it's going to be even more impressive for the cost savings to businesses. So lots of work still to do on that front, but we want to make sure we send a signal that we want you to invest. We want you to grow in Alberta. We want this to be the innovation and growing hub, technology-driven, innovation, talent-driven hub of all of Canada. So we want to make sure we have that reputation long-term, and the best way to do that is to free up free enterprise and the innovation to happen in our province. Third pillar, as I mentioned, was strengthening our workforce and making sure that we get people back working again as fast as humanly possible coming out of this pandemic. Good news on this front, Alberta is forecasted to lead the country in growth this year and next year. We're forecasted as well to lead the country in job creation. So lots of opportunities here, but we want to make sure we make it even easier to onboard and train Albertans. So we put in place our Jobs Now program. This covers up to 25% of the first year wages of employees. It's a $370 million program. Covers up to $25,000 of that first year wage of 25%. So big push on our end to get people back in the workforce. We also want to make sure that we get our young students into the workforce. We put in place a big internship drive for thousands of internships for young Albertans to get that first job. We're also looking at our immigration strategy for Alberta to bring in talented entrepreneurs, people that are graduate students, making sure that they can stay here in the province of Alberta. Historically, we had labor pressures in the oil sands and Fort McMurray. Now our labor pressures are different, and we have to make sure that we have that innovation reputation in Alberta and that technology and entrepreneurial spirit that is alive and well. So we want to make sure our immigration policy reflects that as well. So that's another thing that we're working on behind the scenes. So taxes, efficient government, and also when it comes to strengthening our workforce, that's the key. And I'm going to turn it in a second here to life sciences more particular, but I also want to give you a quick snapshot of the economy of Alberta. So everybody knows Alberta as kind of an energy leader, and we are very well positioned long-term to continue to have that strength in our economy. You've got the traditional, oil prices of over $70 WTI. You've got natural gas prices are strong right now. And Alberta is a leader when it comes to the ESG message internationally. We're starting to see billion-dollar projects come in for hydrogen. We're starting to see $1 billion of investment going into renewable power in Alberta because we put in place the right framework. We want to make sure we have that sustainable path long-term. There's lots of opportunities for us to have stability in our energy sector, and Alberta is going to continue to be a world leader. There's lots of buzzwords that get thrown around in the energy industry, from transition to many companies are also going for net zero by 2050. And we want to make sure Alberta is the place to attract that investment and continue to be a leader in the innovation space when it comes to energy. We've done it historically, horizontal drilling, the SAGD, from carbon capture. So we want to make sure we continue to be a leader in that space. So I wanted to kind of give that message for the overall economy. We've seen huge numbers coming out of our agricultural industry, robust prices there, lumber industry is going well. So the traditional economic drivers of Alberta are all starting to fire on all cylinders, which is encouraging news. So last year, when I started this in August, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what the future looked like. So where are we looking at right now and today? We have that stability coming in the workforce, lots more of an upbeat tone in the business community, hiring practices as well. So then kind of onto the other side of our strategy. We have the building on our strengths. So that's kind of what I covered off there quickly. I can get into the weeds on that too later on. If people are really curious, we can always do a follow-up. But then when it comes to diversifying through growth. So this has been a really interesting area for us. And last summer, we launched our Innovation Capital Working Group to give our government advice on how do we take this venture capital space on all these innovative companies of Alberta that we're starting to see, how do we take it to the next level? And the advice that they gave us was you need to stimulate research and development in Alberta. So we put in place the Innovation Employment Grant, covering up to 20% of that early stage research and development in Alberta, similar eligibility to the former SHRED credits. So that started in January of this year. The other side of it was we need to make sure we had venture capital attracted to Alberta. So we have a crown corporation, the Alberta Enterprise Corporation, which is a fund-of-fund model for venture capital. We gave them an additional $175 million to attract and bring in venture capital to Alberta. So, but just when you take a look at it, so that's kind of what we did last summer. But just in the last year alone, the growth in the innovation and technology space has just been immense. So 2018, we had about 1,200 technology companies in Alberta. Fast forward to 2020, we're up over 3,000 of them. So exponential growth is happening in this whole field. And this, which is really encouraging. And a lot of that is in the life sciences space as well, which is, again, really encouraging for us to see. So we have that happening. Venture capital investment. 2018, we were at $100 million. 2019, went up to $220 million. 2020, $455 million of venture capital. And then in the first quarter, so the first 3 months of this year, $220 million of venture capital investment in Alberta. So we're on an exponential growth curve is happening right now in our province in the innovation and technology space. And that's a huge credit to many of the people that are listening in here right now. So thank you for believing and doing this. And it's been an effort of many, many years. And it's really starting to pay dividends in the province of Alberta, creating thousands and thousands of jobs here at home. So that's kind of the big picture as to what we're seeing. On top of that, we want to make sure that we position Alberta for success long-term. And the pandemic has really been eye-opening to many people around the world as to supply chains. How do we make sure that we have stable health supply chains? So early on in the pandemic is around PPE. How do we make sure that we have masks, ventilators? And AHS, to their credit, they were really innovative. We worked with companies here that were doing 3D printing, manufacturing. We created ventilators in Alberta. We had mass production now happening in Alberta. So there's lots of opportunities for us to continue to disrupt and innovate in this space. We're also finding too, with the advancements of advanced manufacturing, areas where we historically had to kind of offshore to be competitive from a price perspective, a lot of that can now actually happen here at home in Canada and in Alberta at a very competitive pricing due to shipping costs, people's more awareness around net zero, the cost of moving goods around the world. There's lots of opportunities for us to take more services and provide them here at home as well. So lots of innovation happening in that space. But we also took a look at vaccines and the supply chains that go around vaccines. So we've launched a request for proposals, asking people to give us their proposals to say, look, how can we make sure we have a better stable supply chain here in Alberta? And we're lucky because we have one health authority in Alberta, an immense amount of buying power. We can be strategic in our role. And as well, the federal government has put up $2.2 billion to help build out pharmaceutical and life sciences space vaccine capacity in Canada as well. So right now we're working with the federal government on that strategy. And I know we have the Kai Shing Institute, Dr. Tyrrell here to speak in a moment, but we have world-leading research happening right here in Alberta. We've got a Nobel Prize winner in Dr. Houghton right here at the University of Alberta. So we have many building blocks that are happening right here at home. We've got a couple companies working on COVID vaccines. We've got people that are looking at doing, I call this the ingredients that go into vaccine. I know it's a lawyer term, but the ingredients that go into vaccine, companies that want to build that capacity out here, fill finish capacity right here in Alberta. So there's a big role for us to play. We're doing our due diligence right now, working with the various proponents, as well as with the federal government to make this hopefully a reality here at home. Because I think Alberta has a big role to play nationally in this strategy, long-term security. One more kind of topic to go through, and this is around data. And the one thing that was really interesting, and the pandemic has really brought to light the importance of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data in looking at trends, looking at pandemic responses in real time. But we've also seen the health benefits of that. So countries like Israel are known as kind of these innovative countries that are kind of looking at that next generation of technology. And obviously they were, the world leader when it came to vaccination rates. But it's part of the reason why they were able to position themselves that way was their adoption of technology, working with data, providing access to data sets. And because Alberta is very uniquely positioned with AHS, we having one health authority, about 4.5 million people in Alberta, diverse population, diverse genetic makeup of our population. We have the opportunity to look at that data and find ways to save thousands of lives in our province and potentially hundreds of thousands of lives internationally. So we're looking at that. We're partnering with AHS and Service Alberta, looking at a data strategy for our province. I know health cities have advocated for projects like that. We have many other artificial intelligence advocates that have been positioning for this. Again, we're doing our homework on this right now. We have to make sure we get the public bought into this. There has to be that awareness around security of information. But we're doing our homework right now, and there's many models internationally. The United States is taking a big look into data, artificial intelligence, and how do you protect personal information, but also look for those innovative solutions as well, and bring in that whole entrepreneurial capacity to solve the world's biggest problems. So that's another area that we're really looking at right now and doing our homework on. If people have advice, suggestions, thought leadership on this area, we're all welcome right now to us in the government of Alberta. We'd love to take those ideas and take a look at what we can do longer term. Last thing, this is the pitch for why Alberta. We take a look at the Canadian marketplace. You've got cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, all very expensive cities. Very difficult for young people to get ahead and for families to get ahead. And this pandemic has brought to light for many people that were living in condos in downtown Toronto, was that really what they want long term? And we're starting to see that renewed interest in affordability, being able to have a house with a backyard, all those things that are there. And Alberta, in particular, and highlight our two major cities of Edmonton and Calgary, you can still get a house in the suburbs for $500,000. You can get 2,000 square feet, newish house, nice yard, amazing infrastructure. Alberta has some of the best infrastructure when it comes to cities for 1 million people for our two major centers. We got mid-sized centers, again, very livable communities, amazing infrastructure for cities of that size. We always rank high when it comes to international rankings, when it comes to the whole experience and quality of life that individuals can have in our province. So with this pandemic and the flexibility of the workplace, the competitive environment that we're creating around the business environment and investment environment, it's a big value proposition, not only for the businesses that want to get going, but also for the individuals and making sure that they can get ahead faster in Alberta, because people can get ahead faster in our province. We're very well positioned. We want to make sure we make the strategic investments as well in our post-secondary institutions and the research to make sure people are successful long-term. Alberta truly is hitting its stride for a rebound, and now is the time to definitely get into Alberta and grow. If you need more details around different programs and how we can help assist, love to be able to do that as well. So I'm going to stop there. Very good luck with the session this afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today, and really just appreciate everything that you do for our province.
Minister, thank you very much for your time today. It's great for your to hear your words and your vision, and we look forward to working with those who are in the session today and bringing them back to you for the final sales pitch. So I know you have to get back to the house. Thanks for your time, and we will see you soon.
So much.
So the minister talked a little bit about some of the initiatives in Alberta around strategic data. And one of the things, for those of you who don't know Alberta, will understand once you've worked here a bit, is that the number of companies in tech and life sciences has increased over time, but so have the industry and agency supports. And one of the things that I find unique about Alberta is, as competitive and passionate as we are, we all tend to work together. So organizations like Edmonton Health City and Innovate Calgary, Innovate Edmonton, BioAlberta don't compete with each other on programming. We prefer to work together and make sure that we have the best programming available. Calgary Economic Development, Edmonton Global, same thing, working together. And then the service providers, and a lot of them are in the room today, and I encourage you to find them. API, or Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation, as a service provider, Northern RNA, the ACTM, the Advanced Cell Therapy Manufacturing at the U of A. These are all service providers that have grown in the last few years to support our ecosystem and start to build those critical pieces we need to start in growing and investing. I want to turn now to our next presenters, and the next presenters actually speak to my comment earlier about the research and clinical trial infrastructure that Alberta has developed over the past 40 years. We are so fortunate to have institutions with the capacity and experience that's been created at the University of Alberta, such as the Applied Institute of Virology. Dr. Lorne Tyrrell is a distinguished university professor at the U of A and founding director of the Kai Shing Institute of Virology. His research is focused on viral hepatitis, and his work on the development of antiviral therapies resulted in the licensing of the first oral antiviral agent to treat chronic hepatitis B infection, lamivudine, in 1998. Today, it's licensed in over 200 countries worldwide for the treatment of HBV. Unfortunately, Dr. Michael Houghton he's supposed to join us today from California. He has had a few technical glitches, so if he is here, great. If not, we're in very capable hands, but I will introduce him for those of you who don't know. Dr. Michael Houghton is the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Virology from 2010 to 2018 and is the Professor of Virology at Kai Shing. He's also the Director of the Kai Shing Applied Virology Institute. He was jointly named the 2020 Nobel Prize winner in Physiology or Medicine, along with Harvey Alter and Charles Rice, in recognition of the discovery of the hepatitis C virus. His research in the field of viral hepatitis has led to improved blood safety and hepatitis C treatment to the point where the viral infection can now be cured in virtually all patients. Dr. Tyrrell, I will turn it over to you. Thank you for walking us through the research portfolio at Kai Shing Institute.
Well, thank you very much, Rob, and it's distinctly my pleasure to present this. I believe Dr. Houghton is in the audience, but he had trouble signing in, so I will do this presentation. But the Kai Shing Applied Virology Institute at the University of Alberta was established in 2013. Next slide, please. As you've heard, Dr. Houghton is the recent Nobel laureate 2020 in medicine, and he discovered the hepatitis C virus, and he was also the key individual in establishing Chiron as an outstanding company. When he started, he was the 23rd employee. When Chiron was sold, there were over 6,000 employees and sales of $2 billion. This was bought out by Novartis in 2004 for about $11 billion. I worked on lamivudine with Glaxo, and we were able to bring this to market in 1998. And as mentioned, it is marketed around the world. There are better compounds for hepatitis B now, but we were the first compound. In addition, we developed a model for hepatitis C, the first mouse model that could be infected. It's the first non-primate model. We spun out a company, KMT Hepatech, and KMT Hepatech in 2017 was bought out by Phoenix Bio, but we retained many people in Edmonton in Phoenix Bio, KMT Hepatech subsidiary. Next slide, please. Just to let you know that the Kai Shing Institute of Virology was supported by the government of Alberta extensively, as well as the Kai Shing Foundation, and established in April of 2010, which I direct. And Michael Houghton was recruited about that time and became the director of the Applied Virology Institute. Both Michael Houghton was very interested in seeing great discoveries converted into products, and that was very much eye to eye with the philosophy of Mr. Lee, and the Institute for Applied Virology was established in March of 2013. Next slide, please. Our goals in the Applied Virology Institute is to innovate in major diseases areas of unmet medical need. And we'd like to commercialize and create a vibrant biotechnology industry in Alberta. Next slide, please. Michael has been passionate about developing a hepatitis C vaccine. He was passionate about discovering this virus and persistent work over 7 years to find the virus with his team. He has also been passionate about developing an excellent vaccine for hepatitis C, a difficult project. Next slide, please. Currently, the hepatitis C is a bloodborne disease. There are still about 2 million people per year infected, and worldwide there are still about 75 to 100 million people that are carriers, and about 400,000 deaths a year from cancer or cirrhosis. The vaccine that has been developed here is the only one that has shown efficacy in animal models and some in humans. It is, sorry, could you make that slide a little bigger for me? Okay, that's fine. It produces broad-ranging antibodies and T-cell responses. It's a subunit vaccine of E1, E2, and it also has T-cell epitopes. And these are producing the correlates of protection in animal models, and we believe in humans as well. We have a wide portfolio of intellectual property, both in the proteins and the polynucleosides for RNA and DNA copies. Next slide, please. Vaccine has shown cross-neutralization across the different genotypes. And this is with the E1, E2 in humans that went into a trial earlier. And we got access to these sera from immunized humans showing cross-neutralization, some with all of the genotypes. Next slide, please. Hepatitis C vaccine, we are expecting to go into phase 1 clinical trials in 2022 in Alberta and in Germany. This will be followed by a phase 2 clinical efficacy trial, 600 enrollees from the US and Canada. We hope to do this in 2023 to 2026, and a phase 3 study with approval in 2028. We are seeking vaccine development partners. On the adjuvanted vaccine, the vaccine candidate is an optimal candidate, and for the intercellular localization of E1, E2, there are some things about the protein vaccine that make it the optimal. However, with what's happened with COVID and the new vaccines, we are exploring opportunities to look at mRNA vaccines for hepatitis C as well, and have some of that intellectual property protected. Next slide, please. The second vaccine that we're working on is a vaccine to prevent Group A streptococcus. Group A is, next slide. Group A streptococcus is the disease that causes rheumatic heart disease. It causes skin infection. It causes strep throat. And it also causes some difficulties with kidney disease. Next slide, please. It is a disease, Group A strep, known as gas, is caused by the Group A streptococcus. And It is the cause of rheumatic heart disease, kidney disease, recurring fasciitis, and necrotizing fasciitis, sepsis. About 500,000 people a year will die from group A streptococcal infections as a result of it and the consequences. The group gas vaccine candidate is an alum-adjuvanted conjugated antigen, synthetic peptides to the alum. It is, each bactericidal and highly effective in preventing the infection. It has been used in some infiltration and prevents infiltration of the disease, but also allows white cell and bactericidal events to occur because it blocks one of the toxins that block white cell immigration. This was developed by Dr. Michael Good from Griffith University in Australia and is being developed at the Kai Shing Institute of Virology. Next slide, please. We are excited to say that this prevents the skin infection very effectively, as you can see in these animal models where one animal has got the virus and the other has been vaccinated, and with excellent protection in skin infection, and also prevents the blood infection. Next slide, please. We are very pleased to say that the phase 1 study has been approved by Health Canada, and it's to begin in Q3 of 2021 at the University of Alberta. The phase 2 studies will be a challenge study conducted in Melbourne, Australia, and this has already been pre-arranged based on the results of the phase 1. And the phase 3 study and anticipated approval should occur in 2025 or 26. We are seeking co-development partners for the gas vaccine candidate as well. Next slide, please. Another disease that we work on is human cytomegalovirus, a disease that is common in almost everyone, but not causing serious disease until you are immune suppressed or immune compromised. Next slide, please. This is being developed by Dr. James Neiman, formerly with Pfizer, now working in the Kai Shing Institute. And it is a vaccine that we believe, or an antiviral we believe is going to be very effective. It has, this disease is a major problem in transplant patients. It's also in almost everyone, but only when you're immune suppressed does the disease reactivate, such as in HIV with the retinitis that was seen in HIV, as well as the immunocompromised patients that develop severe CMV infection, particularly bone marrow transplants. It is also seen as a serious infection in infants. Next slide, please. The antiviral effects of the current antivirals for CMV are limited and not very effective against this disease. In the AVI, Jim has developed 2 additional compounds that show significantly improved inhibitory concentrations, IC50s, and they do not show cell toxicity. So we believe these are very good candidates, and at this time they are moving into animal studies and selecting the exact right compound, as there's several compounds that Jim has developed with his team, and we believe we'll have a very good chance of developing an excellent antiviral agent for CMV. Next slide, please. The development pathway is to prove efficacy in the animal models in 2020 and 2021 and 22, and seek a partnership to take this into the clinic. Next slide, please. Another disease we have been working on with a very good neurologist, Dr. Jack Germandis, who is a neurologist at the University of Alberta. He is seeking novel therapies for Alzheimer's disease. Next slide, please. The approach is to treating Alzheimer's is urgently needed. As you know, there was a drug licensed in the last week, the first one in 20 years, but there's much controversy about that licensing. Dr. Germanis and his team have shown that some synthetic peptides to the amylin receptor are able to block some of the deterioration in the transgenic mice, and he has isolated peptides that are effective in improving this disease. The Kai Shing Institute of Virology has a computational assisted drug design discovery program and a very strong chemistry team that is now working on this. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can't see behind it, but this is the action potential in the cortex in the brain. And let me just say that behind the yellow and the red is a black set of dots, and that's the normal brain of a mouse that shows with repeated stimulation, you have a long-term potential that is retained in the brain. However, in the blue, you will see is Alzheimer's disease mice. These are congenitally, are mice with transgenic mice that develop Alzheimer's. And in the red is using the drug in the normal mice. It doesn't affect the long-term potential. However, when you take the blue animals with the Alzheimer's congenital genetic mice, you treat them with the product that we have developed, and you'll see that it restores it back up to the level. The yellow is the restoration to a normal action potential. Next slide, please. We're very excited about this. It is a demonstration of efficiency in animal models, and we want to do more work in this particular area, but we believe we have some small molecules that will restore the long-term action potentials in these animals, and we've demonstrated some improvement in the memory of these animals in the water maze and other tests that are conventionally used to study transgenic animals that develop Alzheimer's and to test their memory. Next slide, please. So Kai Shing has several other programs that I'll simply mention, but it has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and we're in a collaboration with a professor at Strasbourg as well as in our own site, and we have found some compounds that seem to decrease the accumulation of fat in liver cells, and this is an early program, but we definitely believe we're on the right track to something important for fatty liver disease, now the disease that's most common in patients around the world. We also have an immune checkpoint small molecule program, particularly directed at the CTLA4 and B7. And we believe that small molecules for immune checkpoints have many advantages, particularly when it comes to side effects associated with the monoclonal antibodies, particularly when they're used in combination with small molecules. You can stop the therapy and reverse the side effects, which is hard to do in the patients with monoclonal antibodies. We also have oncolytic vaccinia viruses and reoviruses that are studied within the Kai Shing Institute, and look forward to seeing these programs as potential oncolytics. I simply want to say we have a broad range of products, and I hope that we will have opportunity to discuss some of these with you after this meeting. Thank you. Back to you, Robert.
Little laggy. Should be coming back anytime now. There we go. All right. Thank you, Dr. Tyrrell, for that very fast overview of what's a tremendously exciting portfolio. And on behalf of BioAlberta, we appreciate you and Dr. Houghton joining us today. We look forward to working with you and some people in the audience to find some partners to help you continue that great work. So congratulations on the work to date, and can't wait to see what you do in the future. So first networking break. The rest of the day is we're going to take about 10 minutes now. I encourage you to move around from your tables, find different people, find some of those industry organizations or life science companies out there that you've been looking to meet with and connect with them. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with the first group of companies. So we'll see you then.